the cities. And so it may be a good time to revisit all this, but to say that we're not going to open the can of worms isn't accurate. It's
I didn't say
no,
you're
no,
not.
I'm just saying though that it is a complex issue with a lot of facets. And I don't even know what people are making now in the outside world. There's so many people who want jobs. I just don't know.
Significantly lower, but I think ultimately we're at a position to where we've got other options that we can start reviewing now.
Sure.
Such as a reduction in the caps that we've had, and even make a significant downturn in that, and then the employee makes up the difference. But that's just my opinion, that's not council's opinion. And an increase in contributions. Corrections paid 100%. I mean, they started out at 100% of their contributions. Corrections, but they left employees paid them. So, and I think ultimately, to be economically viable as a city, we need to start looking at options to where that is the way it is, so that we don't get into an 08, 09 situation again. But those are contract issues as well.
Yeah, those are absolutely
I
contract
mean,
issues.
you just can't arbitrarily say, council, okay, we're gonna do this, because, no, that's a negotiated contract issue.
Absolutely.
Or we had a question from the audience.
And I want to make one more correction. if you
Yes,
don't
please.
mind. I want to go to some of the comments made with respect to information technology.
Yes.
This is certainly not a help desk operation. Okay.
Okay,
It
well,
is-
wait a minute, wait. If we go into your own words, I guess where I got it.
This is certainly not a help desk operation. The city has deployed complex technologies that are managed by professionals. So for
Oh,
example.
yes, they are.
Okay.
It says, and this is where I got it. The IT help desk assists all users of the city with computer-related problems.
Which is significant. What related problems are, that's what I'm about to explain
Exactly,
to you.
I understand, but we had an
Okay.
IT department too, but it does say help desk.
Okay, but yeah, the related problems component. The city has deployed significant amount of complex technologies, okay?
I can tell you wants to jump in there. Make sure we know the subject.
I mean, if I make a mistake, I'm happy to admit it. And I do make mistakes, but on that one, it was in the budget.
And some of those complex technologies includes the city's total suite of financial management system, whether it's for budgeting, whether it's for accounting, whether it's for utility billing, whether it's for automated meter reading technologies, whether it's for class registration, whether it is for managing the building permitting process. Or
Now, do they create the software? Do they write the software?
No, they don't create software, but they deploy, they implement, help implement and manage this software on a day-to-day basis. If there is any place that I can see that we have the most efficient operation in the city, is actually in this area. We spend a whole lot less money. It doesn't take.
It was a
It doesn't-
suggestion.
No,
Just a
I understand.
suggestion.
What I'm saying is, even though we are a city of small, we basically do the same functions and use the same technology. For example, the city of Corona uses. And I can guarantee you their budget in IT is probably 20 times this budget, without a doubt. Okay, we have found ways to be as efficient as possible with respect to our IT function, and we're continuing to look at ways to even reduce more. Recently, I just hired a part-time IT manager to replace our retiring information technology manager. I know I've got comments to the effect that what you're paying this guy is really, it can be real. Okay, the amount I'm paying is they tell me the market is twice that. That is, it can be real, but somehow we managed to find ways to make these things work And again, our information technology is running on
That includes the replacement of infrastructure.
and that includes,
I was gonna ask, does that
they'll put
include
that in
those-
as
that
evidence,
was my
point.
contractor services,
Right.
yes.
And that new
Technology
line
changes.
and all that?
Absolutely.
And the
Yeah.
And the
connections.
provision for telephones and everything.
And the new computer lines that go all over the city now, all that stuff that was
The
laid.
website, everything,
That includes the new website too?
Absolutely, everything is on here. That's whole budget.
So I think we need to change in the budget that it says help desk.
That's what my.
Except phones are in,
We need to change that.
in the building division, their phone operation costs are in there. So that's the maintenance.
No, I can see why you'd be, help desk, wow, 300.
Yeah.
I can see that.
But anyways, sorry about that.
Mr. Dixon, did you have a question to go
I
back to?
just had a statement.
Okay. That's allowed as well.
Being a senior person in here, you know, a lot of these promises were made back when times were really good and competitive. And in order to maintain personnel or hire good people, these promises were made without thinking how they're gonna pay for it. Times are not that way anymore, so we need to change it. That's all I gotta say.
We have counsel here listening to. Yes, sir.
Yes, as far as the,
State your name for the record, please.
Lou Palza,
Can understand.
as far as the lifetime medical benefits go, which employees are under that umbrella? All city employees?
All full-time city employees,
Does
not
that,
part-time
does
employees.
that include their dependents?
That's correct, yes,
And the council gets lifetime medical as well,
yes.
for the dependents even?
The ones that choose to.
Why dependents?
Well, again, it's not untypical for health insurance benefit provided to employees to cover dependents. It's not, in fact, it's almost, I would say, almost universal. That's what you see everywhere. That's how this thing's
Well, yes, but lifetime?
I don't have lifetime health insurance. Unless I hit, a certain number of years. Children are not covered.
10 years.
10 years.
Well, as long as you're still alive. Yeah, the ones until, yeah.
There's a need.
When I left the school district,
He's still finding out.
when I left the school district, I had to pay COBRA for myself and my wife. $960 a month for medical coverage. We didn't have lifetime medical for dependents. I don't understand that option.
When I left Boeing, there was no lifetime medical for anyone unless you were in the auto workers union. The other unions, there was no lifetime medical. You left and the medical ended, I don't care how long you were there. Unless you were in that one strong union, machinist union and auto workers union, your medical ended at the end of the month that you retired or left the company. No dependents, nothing. And that's a pretty major corporation.
All of aerospace was the same way. I retired from Hughes Aircraft Company. I retired with 15 years and 11 and a half months. I was only credited for 15 years because they didn't have a full calendar year for the 16th year. Incredible. One other thing about the IT I wanted to mention. You mentioned something about being cost effective to go out for bid. I've found in the past, wherever I've worked, that the employees that run those departments are more knowledgeable than someone coming in from the outside. As what you're gonna save, I don't know how much you're gonna save as far as benefits goes, but when the contractor bids a job, they bid for themselves, their employees, and the benefits. So you may be paying a higher premium and getting less of a service and less of knowledge that the local people have already accumulated.
You know, I think our question was, has it gone out to bid, and do you have that comparison? And you might be, you're probably right.
I understand what you're
Actually,
saying.
I do have, I don't know what to, we bid the purchasing of services and all equipment that is used in the information technology. So what is almost going to be impractical to contract out every employee in IT. Because, first of all, I think it's going to be very cost prohibitive. I have a cost proposal on my desk right now where per hour charge on some of those can go as high as $200, $250. I'm paying employees $25 to essentially do the same thing with benefits. Even at that, it's not going to come. It's not coming close. But the reality is, we do need a minimum number of employees on a daily basis to make sure that we are functioning. If I contract out, I'm still going to have somebody here on a daily basis. And in fact, some of them on call on a 24-hour basis, because that's what the infrastructure requires, and that's what the technology we now have is they don't get shut down at any time when people go home.
Yeah.
So.
Okay. Did anyone else have a question?
Corinne,
Yes.
just, I retired PERS. I don't have a lifetime medical. I have an option to buy my medical through PERS until 65, then I got Medicare. My wife, who's retired STIRS, has lifetime medical for herself. But I have to piggyback on her, and I still pay for it. So there isn't, a lot of spouse stuff, they stopped that. The STIRS stopped a lot of those about 3 or 4 years ago. So, and on the IT situation, I work for Riverside County for the Sheriff's Department. We had our own IT, we have our own IT department. And the reason we found out it's going out to bid, what IT there would do and how they do it county to county, if your IT department would sit down and your guy fixes something and say he goes into Public Works and wants to fix something in their IT, he actually bills IT, Public Works. That's a charge. Even though he's a city employee, that way when you go down and look at your budgets, you determine is what he's charging, even though he's your own employee, you charge Public Works for that. And that way you can determine, that's why we determined that having our own IT department was actually cheaper from the Sheriff's Department than going outside.
Right. Actually, we do it that way. What happens is all the costs in IT is allocated back to the various departments. So their budget is not an additional budget. So the budget you see for IT is a budget that is charged to finance, charged to parks and recs, charged to public works, charged to water and sewer fund, and so on and so forth. Yeah, it is done that way. But the total cost still is what it is. If I eliminated them, then I can pull those costs from the various departments. But it's the same concept that we apply.
Does anyone on the committee have any further comments or questions?
Yeah, I do. I got a couple. In terms of parks, this comes up on occasion. So, for example, return parks to family trust, that would be, is she the only one who would return it?
I'd have to really research how that would be shared by Macon, because it's a combination, right?
And then also.
But then you'd have to look at probably Ted Brooks as well. And now, Ted Brooks also came to the city through the water department at that time.
It was through the old
Water
community
became the
services.
city, yes.
Yeah.
And it
park-
also includes to those parks that we inherited through the county. So I don't know if we can
Well,
back
that's
to the
a
county.
community center, that's Parkfield, and then the other one that we got through the Navy, well, through the federal
Parker.
government, was Snipes, and Parker was actually Community Services District. For example, Santana Park, it's kind of apples to oranges, because Santana Park, if you put, when we did a study on this, you put Macon and Shear and Clark and Community Center ball field, it still will not cover the same square footage. It's a much bigger park. And
The 30 parks in in Corona, they're referenced here, their acreage in their parks are much larger in some of those. They're
That's the
not
point.
pocket
That's the point.
involved as what we have in neighborhoods. The other thing is the 17 parks also include some of the open space areas.
And one of the things that has been talked about a lot is eventually to get rid of Clark Field and find an alternative. There's 14 acres, and the other part is Snipes Park. And we just saw something here a while ago in which there'd be a piece of it that you have to, because that's actually under a deed restriction. You'd probably have to return that to the federal government unless you looked at that deal. Groups
Or
outside-
exchange the benefit in some way.
Right, and groups outside, and I'm just touching on High Points. Groups outside of Norco already do pay a higher fee. Was the 1.5 million for the snack shacks, was that redevelopment funding?
Yes, it was.
All right, so in essence, we would have given that back anyway. And the recreation
Let me
programs-
correct you, Kevin. The fees there's one fee for everything.
No, I understand.
But we have special consideration resolution that puts some groups in a different fee schedule, which are traditionally our local groups that have been with us for a long period of time.
And then the other part, is we've looked at all this in terms of trying to find ways to cut money. But one of the things that's a really tough one, and Brian will attest to this, I can remember for years, we denied people from using the different parks at lower costs. And council returned us every time, it used to drive us crazy.
Well, this is a council, this is
But
another
now, the
council
last
action.
councils, the last few years, we haven't done that. The self-sustaining programs, when you really start looking at them, you start looking at things like senior pottery events, you look at different stuff that you have to make a decision, is it worth supporting those things at a cost in terms of just creating community? So those are tough calls, which I'm willing to look at, but I also know the youth groups tend to pay a lot of money. In terms of Ingalls Park,
What percentage do the youth groups do? I know that that Macon Park does not, it does not support itself on the youth groups. What percentage is recovered from the youth groups?
All of the utility, all of the infield maintenance, they handle that themselves.
Well, how much outlay versus income?
Oh, that's an income, they take care of that income. But if we were maintaining that infield, those infills, I'd have to do the square footage cost, I don't know it off the top of my head, but I would say that right now, I think overall, the utility recovery is 100%, it's about $40,000 a year, I believe, off of that one.
Okay, what does the city, what are the expenditures of the city versus the...
Total expenditures are probably about 150, and I'm guessing right here 170,000.
is that for sheer,
For the whole facility.
for the entire facility, sheer and Macon, Little League, AYSO, girls softball? I mean, when I was on the board, we didn't pay any lights at all because we had lots of money.
And out of that, you're getting
Now we
probably,
pay lights.
but out of that 170, that would include the utility, which you're recovering back.
Yeah, and I also know that every year, I was on the board 7 years for girls softball, we would put between $5,000 and $15,000 a year to the infields. And we did it through free labor, which I don't think the city could do.
Well, let me ask you a question, and then we can go ahead and end this. If the voters don't approve a tax initiative, which looks like this is the way it's gonna go, what are you gonna do then? What are we gonna do then? Are we going to, then you're gonna have to do something. We're gonna have to make some horrible, horrible decisions in this town, because we're not gonna have the money for the parks to the extent we do now. We can't self-sustain what we currently have. And let's face it, we live in a very entitled town. Our residents feel they are entitled to free everything as much as they can. And I don't blame them, because we've really tried to accommodate their wants through the years. But if there is no money, then you're gonna be forced to think of these things.
You know, Linda, if you don't get a council that understands the fiscal balance of this city, if you don't get a council that can sit in front of an EZF or a Winco or a Hobby Lobby to attract the kind of business that's necessary to sustain us, then you're in trouble. That is the reality.
So you're saying we're not in trouble?
No, I'm saying the city of Norfolk for 50 years has been in trouble. We have always had
I
a fiscal
understand we
imbalance.
have.
So what I'm saying though is that you have to make sure that your council understands that we live and die on sales tax revenue. That is not a saying, that is not a catch-all. And the truth is that one of the big fears I have when we start talking about cutting down on the reserve is what he said a few meetings ago. We're looking at maybe another economic downturn. So one of the things this council's doing is trying to put a lot of eggs in different baskets. In other words, the auto mall, right now we have a downturn in gas. We're trying to find retail businesses that come here. And we have been very, very aggressive. I don't believe that the residents will vote for a tax. So what we have to do is solve the issue. Ultimately, though, Linda, I think that they have to take care of their own trails. I think that eventually they will have to look at some sort of a tax. I think that if your plan is to make it so hard for people to have these services, so you force them to get a tax, well, that might be a plan, but in some ways, I don't think it will work. And so for me, I think the goal has to be is one, I need to keep the staff, which we have pummeled.
I agree.
We've cut. And part of that is we have now saddled department heads with 2, 3, and 4 former department positions, which means that if we cut their salaries, cut some of their benefits. then-
Nowhere in this,
No,
Kevin, you're getting off subject, nowhere in this does it say anything about
Because the problem
personnel.
is, when these sorts of things are put into the public the way they're being put, what happens is I have to make sure as a council person that these things are explained to the best of my ability. So when you say, some of these things are very flat, and I totally get it, but if they're not explained, I mean, our department heads tend to make 20, 30, 40% less. That's why I was trying to say, hey, we were waiting to see what department heads in other communities made. So in the meantime, how do you offset that? Now, the boondoggle has always been they would get more benefits because they got paid less in the public sector. Well, for many years, we all know that hasn't been true. So I'm just saying there's a lot of levels to this, and that we ultimately, for me, what I feel I have to do as a council person is that we have to generate sales tax revenue that is diversified to a point that it becomes as steady as it can possibly be in a free market system.
Well, let me be, you're talking to someone who went to work for a company that in the only location that I worked in, I went in there at 63,000 people, when I left there were 9. So I totaled 9,000, so I totally understand what you're talking about. But on the second thing is, if the city, if the council has this under control, and you're the ones with the knowledge, we come in here with this report based on a couple of meetings and some information that we were given. So my next question is that since everything is rosy,
I didn't say that.
looking good, it's looking
You know
good
what?
right now,
No, I didn't say that either.
what's the purpose
It's
of this
very
ad hoc
important,
committee?
Linda, that we are clear. Clarity, you don't just say 17 parks, you name those parks, you find out which one's connected to an LMB.
I met with
I understand
Brian,
that,
we went
but then
through that, and I'm not gonna write a book and hand it in.
I've never said that. What I'm saying is that we are on an upswing, and the point is that I hope we will continue on
This
trend.
report means nothing anyway.
No, this report means a lot.
No, it does not, I beg to differ. It was made on the basis of 2 meetings in City Hall, and the research that we were able to do within the printed budget. That was it. And the fact that the city council, as you said, we've dealt a year on this subject, we've dealt another year on this subject. We don't know this. We're in this ad hoc committee, and I'm saying that the council has all the knowledge, and why are we here? There was no reason for this ad hoc committee. And we're here to rubber stamp exactly what is needed and what is asked for. And that's it, and that's what we're doing.
I think that's your opinion.
That is my opinion.
Yeah, that is my opinion.
I mean, if you're going to put out 7 closing parks.
I didn't say close 17 parks,
Except
Kevin.
that you talk about selling them.
You bet.
So what does that mean?
I am saying that the parks that are rarely used,
And which
You come
ones?
back and you're still talking to
And
me
which-
about make and share.
and
That
which
is a
ones?
part that is always used. So I'm just trying to keep it in the context in which it was written.
Maybe where we can agree is that maybe there should have been more in-depth looking at these things.
There could have been if we'd had more meetings.
Well, we're still here.
No, the report is concluded.
Way to go, Lynn.
I'd like to, I don't, you know, I don't understand why you didn't scream and holler for extra time. If you feel like
Well, I had
you got
asked,
shortchanged
I
on
had
time.
asked for extra time, they wanted it mid-November, and I had said, no, we can't, because there was a lot going on, and I totally understand that. There was a lot going on, and the city is understaffed, and I'm not gonna add burden to that.
But
the
we're
employees
meeting-
this city
we're meeting
has is
clear through
phenomenal.
March is the way it looks.
But the problem is that.
You're approving everything prior
Well,
to
No, we're not.
the, yes, you
Yeah,
are.
you already have.
No, we haven't.
Yes, you did. Last time you approved.
We-
Aren't you glad you had this ad hoc committee? Andy?
I don't see that we approved.
I'm actually
anything.
on the side
Okay,
of
I
the
didn't go
city.
to the, I didn't go to the city council meeting on Wednesday.
Jody.
Jody,
No.
did
No,
Jody,
she presented what we have been working on.
did she say that we are passing this on to the city? Did she?
And
tell
that's
them?
what we discussed at the last meeting, that, were you ready? I thought she had asked if you were ready to do a presentation, and you said yes.
No.
So I don't recall you saying no, that you were not ready.
She did not ask me that question.
Well, that's,
It was a subcommittee, Pat and I had said that we would deliver this report. We said about 5 weeks ago, we'll deliver this report in December.
and I felt we were clear at the last meeting that even though we were moving
But
ahead
this
with
is
this
fine.
topic.
You know what, the general fund
We're
is in
not
good shape, and it's fine. It really,
giving
it's,
a
well, they're moving
specific
along,
number.
and
We're just trying to get things to move along. Those are not rubber stamp numbers. It is a generalized understanding of the recommendations from staff and our knowledge, because these are two different subjects technically, the regular
they
budget
are, that's right,
and
exactly.
what we need for infrastructure. So what we need for
But they
infrastructure,
interlink,
in the end, yes, we do.
yes, they do.
In the end. But what we need for infrastructure is still completely separate from the regular budget.
Correct, but if you can save money from the regular budget, then you won't need as much for infrastructure.
And that is
was-
still-
That was the
And that,
point.
I honestly believe, is why everyone agreed that we should look into the budget. Because if there are, I mean, it is absolutely a fair option for us as an ad hoc committee to recommend with our final proposal, whatever you want to call it, to city council, that they look into this specific, if whatever specific you want to look into, I'll just go with the medical benefits, just because that's always a big issue with people. It is very fair of us to say, these are one of the operating budget items that we feel that needs to be looked at again. 2004, 2009, we are maybe turning a corner at some point here, but we know that those expenses are high. They're high for every city, we know that. So it's not, you know, completely against the nature of what we're doing here to say, we would like you to look at this, and we can't tell them what to do with it.
No, so-
But we can recommend that they go through the process of maybe making some of those changes, because within 2 years, maybe they're saving money, which is when we're gonna need it, right? So I still think it was a fair option for you to look at the budget and come back with recommendations, and I think if you feel that you need more time, that's,
The report stands.
okay,
I'm one member, I don't,
We're done.
okay, and that's fair.
okay, moving right along.
My point and my comment would be, I hope this report is included in on the master report that we eventually send to council.
And that's kind of what I was saying.
Because there is a couple of items that are truly on my hot list anyway. So parks, it has been for years. And Kevin's well aware of my position about the parks. And
Would you like to put that in the form of a motion?
no. And as Linda right on, there's a couple of things that she's right on about. I mean, we need to look at health costs. Is it time to maybe look at it and say, all new employees, 20 years? And in a contract discussion, take the cap to $1,000, $950. Instead of the, one time it was, PORAC was, what was it? $2,800 a month for PORAC that we were supplying to these. My God. Unbelievable. And we reduced it and we reduced it. Well, and it may be time to look at it again. So Linda and Pat is right on with what my thinking is. So, and I'm hoping that this report goes to council. So I would say it was a good job. I mean, I'd like to see more. I'd like to see if you, like you make the statement of closing parks, but Kevin talking about it, give me the parks. That would help me. That would help me in my research, because ultimately we're on the same page. And I'm looking at ways, because I don't want to raise taxes. I don't want to raise taxes on myself. The school bond, GG, has upset me to a point that I'm thinking about suing them. And yeah, you put that in minutes too. It just irritates me. And I vote Republican too, and registered Democrat, that's right. But anyway, I hope the report does go, because it does combine yours and Pat's thoughts, and it needs to be addressed at the council levels. Good job, good job.
I agree with that. Would anyone like to make a motion on doing something with this report other than receive and file? It is, it's a receive and file.
But it will be included with the council.
That I would like somebody to make a motion for that we maybe include some specific things, and it should not come from a council member, so if someone else would like to.
And that's a real problem that we're developing with me and Kevin sitting here as the mayor and the mayor pro tem. Because ultimately, we can't vote on a lot of things, because we're gonna end up reviewing them at the council level.
Well, can you appoint two other?
Well, that's, I talked to Andy about it, it's under discussion, we'll just leave it at that. Yeah. Nothing is in concrete, but it's just, I had a concern, and I like to voice my concerns with Andy, and Kevin and myself have been talking about it as well. So it's, right now, it's just in a formal discussion, that's it.
Because, you know, just a lot, I mean, Linda and Pat, I do appreciate